Hello everyone and welcome to another News Coolum video and another charging site review. I'm here in Plumas Lake, which is a small town between Sacramento and Yuba City on Highway 70, just south of Olivehurst for those of you who know the area. It's a nice little connecting highway in Northern California where you can travel between bigger cities, or if you are traveling from farther in Northern California or farther in Southern California, you might be bypassing this route. So I am at an Arco in Plumas Lake where Freewire, it looks like in combination with BP and I guess their Pulse brand, has installed two 150 kilowatt there Freewire's Boost chargers. So these are the dual port power splitting CCS plus CHAdeMO, and of course we should talk about the elephant in the room with the Tesla plug now having CCS protocols. And Freewire talking about possibly adopting that. We might see some different splits in terms of the types of plugs that are used, and the just how the split and how the breakdown occurs. There are fewer and fewer CHAdeMO vehicles on the road in comparison to CCS EVs, and like I said, now with Tesla moving their port over to the CCS standard, there are going to be even more cars now that are going to be operating basically interoperably with CCS. And so you're going to want to see less and less of a split, like a parity split between CHAdeMO and CCS, and then more favoring either the CCS1 plug or this new CCS plug with the Tesla format. And so like a two charger site like this, I would expect maybe only one CHAdeMO plug moving forward. But that being said, I kind of like this size of a site for these rural highways in terms of just adding coverage, and then not an overwhelming site, not a huge site, but just enough that for the EV commuters who do happen to be traveling along this route, being able to simultaneously charge 4 cars at reasonably fast rates, I think is okay. Maybe we want to talk about larger sites, and I know with Freewire, each one of their Boost chargers comes with a large battery pack. Last information I had was 160 kilowatt hours. So these are pretty large batteries, pretty expensive chargers. And I would almost like to see Freewire maybe do something where they continue the power splitting and they continue having the battery tie so they can install these chargers in lower power hookups and offset things like demand fees, right? These are only 35 cents per kilowatt hour, which is one of the more reasonable rates that you're going to see. And they can really get away with that because they're not paying demand fees. And in conjunction with a convenience store and a typical travel stop location, you can make your profits elsewhere. So basically pass through costs, or maybe a little bit of a margin selling power at 35 cents per kilowatt hour and never having to deal with demand charges. That's a huge bonus. But I would like to see Freewire maybe explore an option of having a main unit and a subordinate unit, again, power splitting, where that way you can have maybe a lower cost deployment to get an additional 2 to 4 plugs set in, even though you have 2 main units with their 160 kilowatt hour battery packs, and then maybe 2 supplemental units that provide additional power, additional charging stalls feeding off of those same batteries and inverters. Just seems like something that's a possibility for Freewire to explore, because while I think this is adequate, like I said, for a rural site, I think 4 active charging stalls at one time, even with a higher power sort of 150 kilowatt charger, and we can we can argue whether that's even high power anymore. This is almost sort of like the base level, entry level power requirements. 4 is still a fairly small number of active charging stalls, but let's go ahead and do a site review, and I'm just going to do a walk around of these chargers and kind of point out what I do and don't like. And one thing to also note is I paid with credit card here, and I know everybody's on this hype train with auto charge and, you know, plug in and it automatically, whatever, they have your account information, all of that. This is the future. For better or worse, credit card readers, Apple Pay, Google Wallet, whatever the different payment methods are that go through a reader at the point of sale, this is the future, because a lot of people are not going to interface with these chargers in the same way that those early adopters do. And a lot of people aren't going to want to be maintaining multiple accounts with multiple different vendors when they're only going to be interfacing with them maybe a couple of times a year, or even if they are interfacing with them fairly regularly, maybe they just don't want their information stored for extended periods of time on someone's server with access to their payment and, you know, regular membership fees being drawn out. Just a standard flat rate they pay at the point of sale when they need it, and they buy as much as they need, and then they get back on the road again. But yeah, let's just take a quick look at this and talk about, you know, the various aspects of the site that I like to review in terms of access, in terms of amenities, in terms of the concentration, charging speed, and then just the overall location. So the first thing, in terms of access, this is a fairly large parking space. You know, you do have the exit to the car wash there, but if you did need to bring a full pull-through large trailer vehicle here, you could probably do so without impeding too much in terms of people's driving ability, but it is still not a full pull-through stall. You have easy access in terms of getting in here from the roadway, and then if you look over, the freeway is just over there. So this is right off of the Highway 70, right here. Pull in, and it is, like I said, nose-in parking, but you actually get to pull parallel to these chargers, which is actually also going to help quite a lot in terms of just accessing the chargers and being able to use them. And then, like I said, and this is something that's probably going to start weighing into my access scores a little bit more, is you have a full interface, and you have, you know, the pricing displayed. You get to see how much it's going to cost you, and then you have payment readers. And, you know, I don't want to go on too much of a diatribe about this, but I know a lot of people poo-poo payment readers, saying, oh, they're just another area where you have a point of failure and they're unnecessary, and look at how many times they fail with the current infrastructure. But the truth of the matter is, that's really a very unique thing to Electrify America. And I've never had a payment reader fail outside of Electrify America, not on any of these chargers. And then you look over there at the gas pumps, right? A lot of times you're going to be paying with credit card at a gas pump. So how is this any different? It's the way people are used to paying. And like I said, this one worked for me. Like, there's an order of operations. Yeah, you have to be able to plug in, and then you activate. I personally prefer the way that Recargo did it, where you plug in and then it gives you a timer. And okay, so here's the thing. I was going to criticize Freewire here, but now I realize, no, there are actually 3 CCS plugs and 1 CHAdeMO plug. And you know what? I like this. This is where we need to be, where you're starting to switch over, so we're covering the more prevalent vehicle types with CCS on both sides, and then 1 CHAdeMO plug to still be able to support older EVs, EV conversions who maybe don't have access to a CCS plug and power line communication module integration. So overall, access-wise, like I said, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. There's some minor issues in terms of being able to take a full-size trailer here, and maybe some configuration issues in terms of accessing, but those are going to be fairly rare. It's marked as EV only. So yeah, I think this is, I mean, it's a little bit confusing here where they say vacuum only too, because they do have the vacuum and air station here, which is really convenient for someone who's plugging in and charging. But we're getting ahead of ourselves with amenities here. But I think this is more of a dual purpose. I would consider this a dual purpose stall. I wouldn't begrudge a gas powered car if they were parked here, but only if they're using the vacuum. But an EV should be able to park here if they're just using the charger. But 9 out of 10 score for access. But amenities, I'm not going to give it a full 10 out of 10. And I think some people will understand exactly why. Yeah, this is still lacking the same type of covering that you get over the gas pumps. So if gas pumps get covers, electric vehicle chargers should get covers. And that's the big knock that I would have on here in terms of amenities. Outside of that though, you have pretty much everything you need except for maybe food, but even then you do have food in the terms of you have your AM PM sort of fast food, you have a full car wash. You're not going to charge and go through the car wash at the same time, but you have access to squeegees that you can bring over, but you have vacuum, air. You have to pay for all of these things, of course, but like a trash can as well. But either way, you're going to be paying for vacuum and air in a car, in a gas car too. So that's no different. But these are all sort of amenities that you would expect at a travel stop. So basically, outside of a sit-down restaurant, you pretty much have everything you'd ask for outside of a solar covering. So again, this is a 9 out of 10 for amenities. Now, if we step back again though, and we look at site concentration, I would give this a little bit more of a nod, maybe because of the additional CCS plug. Because like I said, you're more likely now to have three CCS EVs here at the same time than you are 2 CCS EVs and then 2 CHAdeMO EVs. So just catering more toward that population. But that being said, this is still very much a minimum bar site in terms of having 4 active charging stalls at one time and splitting 150 kilowatt between 2 heads on each charger. That's why this is really for site concentration. This is still a 5 out of 10, even though this is a rural highway. Probably not going to have as much traffic as a busier like an interstate, but at the same time, this is still just that minimum bar, so 5 out of 10 for site concentration. In terms of site location, like I said, you hop right on there on that freeway. Your Highway 70 South, Highway 70 North. This is a nice connecting route. This is an area that doesn't have a lot of coverage. Even though it's a rural route, it still needs some coverage. I'm just gonna go ahead and give this a 9 out of 10. This is an area that we need more chargers. It's at a travel plaza. It's the type of place that you want to see these chargers. It's on a location on a highway with a lot of travelers, a lot of EVs. Yeah, 9 out of 10 for the location. In terms of speed though, if we want to just jump right into that, because again, these are dual CCS, they have the battery backup, but if you go down here to the placard, yeah, it's up to 300 amp, and so you're really kind of in that 150 kilowatt class of chargers, which is fast enough for a lot of travel, but it's just not fast enough to support the fastest charging EVs at this point. So I would say that it's not really a high power charger outside of small efficient cars that are getting 3.5 to 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour when traveling. This is kind of ideal for that use case, but I would really like to see Freewire up their power. And I would give this only maybe at this point, maybe only a 6 out of 10 for power. And it's not just the overall 150 kilowatt of power or the 300 amp class of power. It's more that you're not going to be able to charge it faster right now. See if right now CHAdeMO is available at 75 kilowatt max because it's having to split those modules. So yeah, I would say maybe a 6 out of 10 for overall site power. All right, so here we are, Arco, Plumas Lake, Highway 70, Freewire with BP Pulse. The overall site score, if I'm doing the math correct, is 38 out of 50, I believe it is. So, you know, I guess you could say a strong C, not C plus, right? So it was a 9 out of 10 for access, just because it is so easy to get to. The only thing it's lacking is the full pull-through parking. 9 out of 10 for amenities. You have pretty much everything that you'd have at a normal gas station, travel plaza, with the exception of we don't get covers over the chargers or the charging stalls, which is unfortunate because it does get hot in Northern California. We do get inclement weather, and then even the screens are a little bit hard to read when they're in the full sun. So 9 out of 10 for amenities. Site concentration, I only gave it 5 out of 10. Now, and that's sort of like the baseline. I think 4 active charging stalls at one time is just the bare minimum. And it's just so people don't misconstrue it too, I don't consider that an average, right? Because when you think about it, you get 5 out of 10 on an exam, that's flunking. So that's an F. But it really is that sort of baseline, you showed up, right? And that's kind of where we are at this point, where 4 active stalls at one point, at one time, or 4 concurrently active charging stalls at one time is the equivalent of showing up for the test. So anything less than that, and I really don't even know that it's worth considering. So 5 out of 10 for site concentration. And then in terms of location, I did give it a 9 out of 10 because, like I said, this is a rural highway that's not really well covered, connecting a large metropolitan area. It was what Electrify America's Green City with Sacramento. It's getting a huge amount of electric vehicle infrastructure, a huge push for electric vehicles. It's the state capital for California, which is supposed to be leading the way with electric vehicles. So just being 30 miles out of that, and not really having any other charging options on Highway 70, this is a super important site. And then of course with speed, I went all the way down to a 6 with this. And while technically this should be a 150 kilowatt class, which would push it up to maybe a 7 or an 8 under normal circumstances, these are split power 150 kilowatts. So they're really a notch below that. And if anything, they're closer in line now with something like ChargePoint Express's split power chargers, right? So it's still good, and when you're not sharing, right, it's a decent power rate. And like I said, if you knew that you weren't sharing, maybe it's a 7 out of 10. But the fact that it is a sharing, that's only a 6 out of 10. And then, like I said, that brings the overall site score to a 38 out of 50. Strong C+. I really like what Freewire is doing. I'd love to see more of it. Like I said, and I'm glad to see that they now went with 3 CCS plugs to 1 CHAdeMO plug, and then we'll probably see in the future the new CCS plugs using, you know, Tesla's plug format. And I don't know that they would necessarily take over the majority. I think Short term, Freewire could probably just replace one of the plugs that they would have been using as a CHAdeMO plug with that newer, smaller format plug. And then eventually maybe CCS1 will be replaced with whatever we end up calling that new plug, CCS3 or whatever. So I'd love to hear what you think. If you have you had a chance to use a site like this? What do you think of these Freewire site configurations with 2 split power chargers? What do you think about their move of starting to limit the number of CHAdeMO, still supporting CHAdeMO plugs, but kind of limiting the number that are on the site? What do you think of the overall site design and the location, being at a travel plaza? I know some people don't care for gas station charging locations. And what do you think about the idea of primarily interfacing through a credit card reader, a payment reader, and paying a flat per kilowatt rate of 35 cents per kilowatt, and then having obviously a display to show you what's going on and not having to have a membership or anything special. You just show up, pay a flat rate, and then get back on the road. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and thank you for watching.